Hi folks, welcome back. Somehow we're still living in a country where the people who lit the match want to lecture us on the fire. The same crowd that gave us lockdowns, looting, and Lizzo at the White House now thinks they're the moral compass of America. Democrats lost the presidency, the Senate, Congress, and they're still clinging to power like it's a wig in a wind tunnel. And right on cue, here comes the fresh new delusional face of the left, Jasmine Crockett, self-declared national necessity, promising that if Democrats retake the House for some retarded reason, her first priority is another political witch hunt against Trump. Because when your policies collapse like a gender studies major in biology class, the only thing left is performance art. So buckle up. We're diving into the circus of contradictions where accountability meets revenge, losing means you're the victim, and somehow, always, the solution is more government.
The Democrats' top spot on the House Oversight Committee, the main investigative committee there in the House.
Yeah.
Why do you want that position?
Because you're a narcissist.
I don't know how bad I want it.
Oh, you want it bad.
But I absolutely think that my team needs me.
No, they don't.
I think that this is where the country needs me.
No, we don't.
And where the caucus needs me to be in this moment.
Don't.
My experience with being a trial lawyer, as I'm the only trial lawyer that's actually in this race, I know how to put a case together. And I know how to defend the case as well. And that is going to be really important because I need to make the case to the American people that not only is Trump a problem, but each and every one of these House Republicans that has decided to go along, to get along, they are a problem as well. They are complicit in all of the harm that is now being inflicted on the American people. So, you know, once we get to the majority, which I'm hoping and praying we get to, next cycle, that allows me to start to open up and do the things that would look like an impeachment.
Let's say you were elected to ranking member and the Democrats take the House and you become chair of that committee. Would you pursue impeachment?
I would absolutely at least do an inquiry.
Democrats are objectively retarded. There's no way you can convince me otherwise. And Jasmine Crockett just proved it. This is the person Democrats are now floating to lead the Oversight Committee, the most powerful investigative body in the House. Not because she has a record of integrity, not because she has a serious policy vision, but because she can shout, "Trump bad," with trial lawyer flair and a TikTok filter. Her entire pitch is that America needs her. For what exactly? To weaponize congressional power against political opponents and rebrand revenge as oversight? This isn't governance. It's grievance cosplay. Now let's take a step back for a second, because Crockett's obsession with impeachment isn't about accountability. It's about maintaining the illusion that Democrats are still morally superior while they hemorrhage public support. They lost the presidency. They lost the Senate. They've been losing decade after decade, the working class vote. And instead of recalibrating, they double down on theatrical outrage. Because if they can't win over America, maybe they can just punish the half that voted against them. It's not a strategy, it's a tantrum with a law degree. Now, her framing is even more telling. She claims House Republicans are complicit in the harm being inflicted on the American people. What harm exactly? Gas prices being down? The border is finally being enforced? Crime is being prosecuted again? What Crockett's really mad about is that her side isn't in control. And when Democrats aren't in power, they call it a crisis for democracy. Every single time. It's emotional blackmail dressed up as patriotism. And notice how everything is personal now. This is where the country needs me. This isn't public service. It's main character syndrome with a congressional pin. We've created a culture where influence, not impact, is the goal, where politics is just another platform for performance. And the scariest part, that's not a bug. It's the feature. Democrats have spent the last decade flooding institutions, media, education, entertainment with identity first, outcome last ideology. The result, politicians who see themselves as saviors, not servants to the people they were elected to serve. Crockett's rise also exposes the fragility of the left's grip on truth. They don't argue anymore. They just accuse. They don't debate. They just indict. And when you replace civil discourse with criminal prosecution, democracy doesn't get stronger. It just rots from within. That's the deeper story here. Not just a bad candidate, but a political movement that rewards volume over virtue, vengeance over vision. And I think it's never been more evident that this isn't just about one seat on a committee. It's about what kind of country we're becoming. A country where losing power makes you a victim, where dissent is treason all of a sudden, where oversight becomes a weapon instead of a civic duty. Jasmine Crockett isn't the disease. She's just a symptom of this leftist ideology. The infection goes much deeper, and until we call it for what it is, it's only going to spread. Oh, and it's spreading like a disease straight to the parasympathetic system. And there's no greater example than the narrative that Democrats are running now. And David Brooks, a so-called conservative who writes for the New York Times, recently spun this about Elon Musk and his Doge cuts at USAID.
And so there's folks at Boston University who count how many people have died because of what Doge did at USAID. And USAID was a very ill-managed organization. That's true. But according to the Boston University folks, so far 55,000 adults have died of AIDS.
Oh, shut up.
Since Trump was elected. 6,000 children.
Lies.
This is what Doge did. That's just PEPFAR, the HIV. You add them all up, that's 300,000 dead, and we're 4 months in. Now you accumulate that over 4 years, the number of dead grows very high. There are mass murderers in the world, Pol Pot, Mao Zedong, Stalin. We don't have anybody on the list from America. And I don't think it's the same as committing the kind of genocide they
So why are you bringing it up?
But by taking away that agency and being at least semi-responsible for the deaths of probably by the end of this hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, that's Elon Musk's legacy. And the people who work at Tesla and SpaceX, you might want to think about that.
This level of mendacity should be punishable by mandatory exile to a group chat with Keith Olbermann and a dozen NPR interns. But instead, it gets aired on PBS and treated like intellectual insight. David Brooks, the New York Times' pet conservative, just compared Elon Musk to Pol Pot, Mao, and Stalin, not metaphorically, literally. Why? Because Musk dared to restructure foreign aid, rein in bloated government programs, and challenge progressive orthodoxy on free speech, energy, and accountability. That's it. That's the crime. And in the warped moral ecosystem of corporate media, that apparently places him on the same plane as mass murdering tyrants. Now, let's be clear. What Brooks is dishing out here isn't analysis. It's ideological projection wrapped in NPR cadence. Brooks cites 300,000 hypothetical deaths based on a cobbled-together interpretation of bureaucratic funding shifts at USAID and PEPFAR, as if these are undisputed casualties of Musk's efficiency reforms. It's absurd on its face. PEPFAR is a program with bipartisan roots, originally launched under George W. Bush. No serious person believes Elon Musk, who was the head of Doge for 5 whole months, is personally orchestrating mass death. But Brooks isn't aiming for seriousness. He's performing for an audience that confuses melodrama for moral clarity. Now, this moment tells us a lot about the current state of respectable discourse in America. The institutions that claim to represent the center, like PBS, the New York Times, and even elements of establishment conservatism, are no longer interested in persuasion. They're interested in policing boundaries. If you challenge these narratives, you're not wrong, you're dangerous. And if you can't be discredited with facts, well, they'll casually accuse you of genocide by proxy. Now, to be clear, this isn't just a rhetorical failure, it's a cultural one as well. Our media class has internalized a logic of moral panic, that disagreement equals harm, that decentralization equals death. What used to be ideological differences are now framed as existential threats, and Elon Musk, for all his flaws, has become the perfect scapegoat, a billionaire who won't apologize, a disruptor who won't conform. He challenges legacy power structures in tech, transportation, energy, and most unforgivably, information and government. So he must be destroyed. Not debated, not criticized, destroyed. The irony is that this type of hysterical overreach actually weakens the left's grip on public trust when every political disagreement is framed as authoritarianism, when every cost-cutting measure is recast as a death sentence. People just stop listening. They start tuning out, because if Elon Musk is Pol Pot, what language is left for real tyranny? Brooks's comment isn't just offensive, it's actually very revealing. It shows us a decaying media class so addicted to its own moral superiority that it's willing to torch its credibility to preserve the illusion. And it's further proof that mainstream conservatism, as defined by the New York Times' op-ed page, has no spine, no clarity, and no future. And by the way, this isn't conservatism. This guy is not conservative. If he's on TV saying this stuff, he is not. And I mean, what else would you expect from a New York Times conservative? That's the definition of conservative by name only. Anyway, all that being said, yes, we should defund PBS. Not because we fear opposing views, but because The American people are done subsidizing the propaganda of elites who spit on the intelligence of the public and call it balance. If this is what counts as reasoned discourse in our day and age, the whole apparatus needs a serious system reboot. And you need no further evidence than the fact that this narrative, this 300,000 deaths narrative, is being parroted by people like Bono, of all folks. Like, Bono, go back to singing, dude.
Just recent report, it's not proven, but the surveillance enough suggests 300,000 people have already died from just this cut off, this hard cut of USAID. So there's food rotting in boats, in warehouses.
God.
This will fuck you off. You will not be happy. No American will. But there is, I think it's 50,000 tons of food that are stored in Djibouti, South Africa, Dubai, and wait for it, Houston, Texas. And that is rotting rather than going to Gaza, rather than going to Sudan, because the people who know the codes or for the warehouse are fired. They're gone. And so this, I don't know, what do you think? What is that? That's not America, is it?
Well, they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
Right. This is the problem. The problem is, for sure, there have been a lot of organizations that do tremendous good all throughout the world. Also, for sure, it was a money laundering operation.
100%.
For sure, there was no oversight. For sure, billions of dollars are missing.
100%.
In fact, trillions that are unaccounted for, that were sent off into various... They don't even know where, because there's no receipts. The way Elon Musk described it, he said if any of this was done by a public company, the company would be delisted and the executives would be in prison. But in the United States, this is standard. When Biden left office, when it was clear that Trump won, in the 73 days, they spent $93 billion from the Department of Energy on just radical loans, just throwing money into places.
Right.
And there's no oversight, no receipts. Like the whole thing is, there's a lot of fraud, a lot of money laundering.
Amazing. Bono starts with, it's not proven, and then immediately launches into an emotional monologue about 300,000 people allegedly dying because of cuts to USAID. Not suspected, not debated, dead, based on surveillance and feelings, I guess. And this is the problem, folks. In today's media and activist class, prefacing a claim with "it's not proven" is just a permission slip to spew whatever fits the narrative. Facts optional, accountability not required. All that matters is emotional resonance and moral theater. And what's the narrative here? That streamlining USAID, an organization with a long track record of waste, bloat, and political manipulation, is equivalent to mass murder? Bono's framing is clear. America used to be the good guy. Now, because we cut off blank checks to NGOs, food is rotting, people are starving, and we're all complicit. All Americans, all taxpayers, all of us. But the facts don't back that up. USAID is not some neutral pipeline of goodwill. It's a sprawling bureaucracy with deep entanglements and geopolitical agendas. And in many cases, it's been a front for regime manipulation, contractor enrichment, and yes, corruption. And thank goodness for Joe Rogan, because to his credit, he cuts right through the sanctimony. He points out the elephant in the room. This wasn't just inefficiency. It was a money laundering operation. Billions of dollars funneled into a black hole of NGOs and contractors with almost no oversight. This isn't some right-wing conspiracy theory. Even left-leaning watchdogs have sounded the alarm about how little transparency surrounds U.S. foreign aid programs. And Musk nailed it. If a public company operated like this, no audits, no receipts, no accountability, it would be delisted and the executives would be wearing jumpsuits. But when it comes to the American government, everybody just gets a handful of applause. And if you question it, oh man, you just hate helping people. Now, what we're seeing here is a collision between two worldviews. One clings to the belief that virtue is defined by how much money we send abroad no matter the outcome. The other is finally asking what we're actually buying. And the panic from people like Bono isn't really about food or famine. It's about losing control over the moral narrative. For decades, institutions like USAID gave the West a kind of secular redemption story. We may be flawed, But at least we're feeding the world. Now that story's unraveling. And instead of defending it with evidence, they default to emotional blackmail, because that's all the left has left. But this isn't just about aid. It's about how the left sustains power through moral spectacle. Whether it's climate, race, gender, or global poverty, the pattern is the same. Dramatize a crisis, declare any dissent immoral, then funnel billions into unaccountable bureaucracies and call that justice. What Musk, Rogan, and others are exposing isn't just fiscal waste. It's a decaying moral framework built on optics over outcomes. But the deeper question is this: what happens when institutions that once defined public trust now lose all credibility? When humanitarianism is revealed as a smokescreen for grift? The answer apparently is to scream louder and accuse your critics of mass murder, but the public isn't buying it anymore. Americans are fed up, and we deserve better. We don't need rock stars like Bono moralizing about warehouse codes. We need truth, accountability, and policies grounded on results, not vibes. After all, we're the ones paying for this stuff. And yes, the American people are very charitable, but we do not want to see our charity wasted or corrupted at the hands of foreign bureaucrats. So no, this isn't about genocide, it's a reckoning. And the people most upset aren't the actual victims, they're the gatekeepers who've lost control of the narrative. And speaking of public figures who should really stop posting political takes online, Miss Rachel, the toddler YouTuber, is now telling world leaders to be ashamed of their anti-Palestinian racism, because nothing says global diplomacy like a sing-along puppet show.
Leaders, be so ashamed of your silence.
Oh my God.
Be so ashamed that you've seen the same images and videos that we've all seen, but they haven't moved you to do the right thing. The doctor who had her 9 children come to her who had been killed. You saw the little girl walking through the fire. You could see her little ponytail. Be so ashamed that you normally speak out for human rights. You normally speak out for children everywhere, but you won't now because they're Palestinian. Be so ashamed of your anti-Palestinian racism. So ashamed that you don't see Palestinian people or their children as the same as us and our children. You think their babies don't like peekaboo and don't smile when they see someone they love and don't cry the same? Be so ashamed that your constituents are begging and pleading for you to say something and do something, and you just ignore us. Be so ashamed that you're putting money, power, your career, your reputation before precious children of God. Be so ashamed that our religions tell us to help the poor. Our religions tell us to feed the hungry. Our religions tell us to open our arms to all people and all children and love every neighbor as ourselves. And you pretend that they mean some. You pretend that they mean ones that maybe look like you or have been deemed acceptable. And that's not right. That's a lie. When enough people say something, it's not controversial anymore. So we need everyone to say something. It's never been wrong to say not to starve children and not to bomb children and not to kill 15,000 children. What's wrong is to be silent. Thank you, and God bless you.
The greatest threat to America right now isn't just corrupt politicians or broken institutions. It's uninformed liberal white women who think signaling virtue on TikTok is the same thing as taking any sort of stand. Case in point, Miss Rachel, a YouTuber who built a platform teaching toddlers their colors, is now scolding world leaders for anti-Palestinian racism. Yes, really. A woman whose audience can't pronounce Palestinian has decided she's a global moral authority of some sort. And millions are applauding her for some reason, not for her wisdom, but purely because of her emotional performance. This is part of the problem. We live in a culture where emotional sincerity is treated as moral truth, where crying on camera is seen as courageous, where having a platform means you're obligated to use it for something, even if you have no understanding of the conflict you're weighing in on. Miss Rachel isn't offering analysis. She's not citing history. She's not grappling with the complexity of what's actually happening in the region. She's reciting a script, one that's been fed to her by a media ecosystem that reduces geopolitics to hashtags and wars to vibes. And let's be as blunt as possible. What she's doing isn't even about Gaza. It's about a desperate need to be seen as good, as virtuous. The new civic religion of the progressive class is visibility, public lament, public shame, public outrage. That's the currency, whether it's climate, race, or foreign policy. The goal isn't clarity, it's moral display. And when that becomes your standard, it doesn't matter if the facts are murky or the situation is complex. It only matters that you look like you care more than the next person. And so we end up in this absurd moment where a toddler YouTuber is guilt-tripping world leaders with Instagram theology and nursery rhyme foreign policy. She invokes God, but it's not the God of Scripture, it's the God of her feelings, the God who affirms all intentions, ignores all consequences, and weeps on cue for her algorithm. This isn't faith, by the way, it's just moral cosplay. Now, what's especially pernicious is that this kind of rhetoric isn't fringe anymore. It's mainstream. It's reinforced in schools, on college campuses, in HR departments, and in children's programming. It teaches young people to believe that silence is violence, that feeling deeply is thinking critically, and that posting is some form of activism. And when those values go unchallenged, we raise a generation of emotionally impulsive adults with enormous platforms and zero understanding of how the world actually works. Now, to be clear, Miss Rachel's video is not the root of the problem. It's a symptom of a deeper sickness, the collapse of civic education, the erosion of institutional trust, and the elevation of performative empathy over informed action. If you think this is just one woman crying online, dry tears, by the way, you're missing the point. This is what happens when we replace serious discourse with influencer activism, when we hand the microphone to whoever emotes the loudest, and when we teach people that feelings are facts for whatever reason. The result, well, a public square dominated not by ideas, but by emotion, and that's not compassion, that's just pure anarchy. So the question you have to ask yourself is, when did we start outsourcing moral clarity to dumb influencers? When did we decide that sincerity on camera outweighs substance off it? You're watching a culture that no longer rewards understanding, it rewards performance. And that should disturb you, because the louder the noise gets, the harder it becomes to tell who actually knows what they're talking about. Are we building a society shaped by wisdom or by whoever cries the prettiest on TikTok? If every issue is reduced to a feeling and every disagreement labeled as hate, where does that leave truth? Where does that leave you? You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Have a terrific day. Peace.